So I'm a big gaming nerd, right?
Oh yeah, dude.
I'm just gonna do.
You and me both, buddy.
Yeah, I'm just gonna do a quick breakdown of the.
What's coming out now?
The next generation of gaming.
Yeah, the next generation consoles, right?
Let's start with the Xbox, the Microsoft Xbox. So their new console is their new flagship console because they actually have two.
Yeah,
it's called.
I've heard of this.
The Xbox Series X,
right,
and is the Mac Daddy, and then there's the Series S, which is kind of like the Whopper Junior.
Right, exactly, the mini me.
Right.
Yeah.
So their strategy is all about power. Okay?
Power.
Yeah, so...
McFly, hoverboards don't work on water unless you got power.
They're touting it as the most powerful console ever, which on paper it definitely is. So they also have this thing called Game Pass. I don't know
I'm familiar with it. No,
it's basically like Netflix for games.
Yeah, I got 3 months for free, and I played like one game on it. I mean, not to talk shit. I mean, I'm sure there's other games on it that are awesome, but...
And then another part of their strategy is backward compatibility.
Yes, we've been hearing promises of this since frickin' PlayStation 2, basically.
Yeah, well, PlayStation 2 was the first.
Right.
And then PlayStation 3 went and had that, and then they cut it out for the later ones.
Yeah, exactly.
And then PS4 was like,
remember that thing you liked? Yeah, we're getting rid of that.
The Xbox Series X can play Xbox Series X games. It can play Xbox One games. It can play Xbox 360 games and original Xbox games. Right. Because Microsoft has put in a shitload of work. They got wizards over there.
So, like, I could literally put an Xbox disc into the Xbox Series X.
Yeah, it'll probably have to download something, but yes, you'll be able to play it.
Okay, that's cool.
And of course, since it's Microsoft, they got part of their strategy is money.
So that's what I was going to ask about with the whole like Series S part, the digitalness.
Mm-hmm.
Just why? Well, I mean, I know the answer. Why? Because they're greedy assholes that want to get rid of basically physical gaming. But why don't you tell me from their perspective? Why?
All right. Well, lots of people don't buy discs anymore. They only buy them off the store.
Well, because they're incentivized by the studios and stuff, or whoever whoever sets the prices of games and stuff. Because of course, people are gonna be like, especially when you're in a shit economy or whatever, and everybody's broke, you're not gonna be like, well, I'm gonna stand on my principles and buy the game disc itself, even though it's twice as expensive as the digital copy.
You have to remember, Drew, we're in the minority. The other thing is the Series S, not only does it not have like the disk drive, but it's also less powerful. It's the junior version, the light version.
Not the Series X, but the Series S is purely a digital one.
Yes.
And it's going to be a cheaper console.
Yes.
It's going to be a smaller console.
It's going to play the same games, but it's going to be like 1080p, right? That's the other thing. It's cheaper also.
Right.
And it's more focused for people who just want to play the game. They're not trying to wow themselves with the graphics or anything.
Yeah, they got shit to do, Marcus.
Right. Whereas the Series X is like 4K and even 8K for some applications.
Right. Can they get better names, by the way, though?
No, I hate the naming scheme is awful.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Wii U level.
It's awful.
Terrible.
Somebody was trying to complain to me about like, well, PlayStation's isn't exactly that creative either. 1, 2, 3.
But at least you know what it is.
Thank you. That's exactly what I said. I'm like, bro, I could tell you. You tell me any PlayStation console or whatever and what it is, and I'll tell you where it belongs in the category of like evolution of the of the platforms. I can't necessarily. I mean, I can because I know enough, but you can't necessarily do that with Xbox.
Okay, if we want to break this down, they had the Xbox, which 2002.
Yeah, that sounds.
Then they had the Xbox 360, and they called it 360 because they didn't want to seem numerically inferior to the PlayStation 3. Like PlayStation 3, Xbox 2, PlayStation 3. I don't know. That's what I've heard. I'm not sure if that's true.
That makes sense, but also it's retarded.
Yeah. And then they're like, well, where do we go from 360? We're going to call it the Xbox 720. It's what their strategy was like. It's going to be the one device in the center of your living room because it's going to do TV, it's going to do games, and it's going to do all this other stuff. So we called it Xbox One. And like, wait a minute, we already have an Xbox One. This is technically the Xbox 3.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Right.
Then they went further on that. They had the Xbox One. They had the Xbox One S, which was like a slimmer. Yeah, it's a slimmer version with better cooling and stuff. Then they had the Xbox One X, which is like a better version of the Xbox One.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
I didn't know they even had these two other
See, this makes it even worse.
Oh my God.
Now they're coming out with the Series X.
You know that meme where like it's Batman just bitch slapping fucking Robin across the face? That's what I want to do with these nerds at Microsoft. Be like, I don't care what name it something else.
Yeah. And what's also funny is if you get into the abbreviations, people would call the Xbox One the X-Bone. Right? And then now this one is, what are you going to call the Series X? XX? Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of went out of order here, but the last kind of part of their strategy is, again, with the money. So they're acquiring, you might have heard they're acquiring studios. They recently paid $7 billion for ZeniMax.
Who?
ZeniMax. It's a company.
What the fuck is ZeniMax? And why the fuck are they worth $7 billion?
So ZeniMax owns Bethesda, which makes like Fallout and Skyrim, Elder Scrolls. They own id, which is
I know them.
Right now they're doing Doom,
they do but they've done
And then Machine Games, which does like they're handling the Wolfenstein franchise.
Okay, that's the only one I'm unfamiliar with. So
yeah, and Arcane, who's done like Dishonored, and they're doing the new game Deathloop. So $7 billion for them. And here's the kind of the kicker. One of my friends was telling me, Disney bought Lucasfilm for
$1 billion, right?
For, I think it was $2 billion.
Was it 2?
Yeah.
Ain't shit compared to 7.
I know.
See, and that's what's hilarious. That people don't understand. Like the video game industry is far a bigger heavy hitter nowadays than the movie industry. It
surpassed movies a while
ago, dude. Yeah. How crazy is that?
But even still, man, like the Star Wars just prints money.
That's insane. That's insane. I know. And then that's like 3 times that basically.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's walking around money.
Yeah, but they've been acquiring studios left and right. They're not fucking around because one of the big hits against them in the last generation was that they didn't really have that many great exclusive titles that you could only find on Xbox.
I kind of get that concept or whatever of having exclusive titles because you want people to buy your console. But as like a consumer, I just love it when they like...
It is an anti-consumer practice, but it's would these games get made if they weren't?
Exactly. I mean, the thing is, they would, but they'd be far more expensive. And these corporate cunts are like, well, how much money can we squeeze out of it?
Yeah.
If we make them cross-platform, we can probably squeeze far more money.
Right. And the other thing is, PlayStation's first party is massive. They own a lot of studios.
So tell me about PlayStation's new freaking one coming up, because you told me about Xbox's sexy new confusing ass fucking 2 heavy hitters that are coming out.
Okay. All right. So yeah, the PlayStation 5, it also has a disc and a digital version, but the digital version is not any less powerful. It just doesn't have a disc slot.
Okay.
That's the only difference. I'm pretty sure.
Better. Are they priced at any different?
Yeah, one's $100 less.
Okay.
Which I don't think the cost of a disc drive is $100, but
I don't think so
whatever.
Either, but that's fine. Yeah. What are you going to do? Make it $50 cheaper? Then no one will fucking... no one will buy it.
Well, because here's the thing about the console cost, okay? There has been more expensive consoles, especially if you factor in inflation. Something like the Neo Geo is just ridiculous.
Tell me how much they are real quick, since we're on that.
All right, so in American dollars...
In average, yeah, exactly. To our American listeners. I was just going to say that real quick. Sorry. I know I asked you a question, but I'm going to interrupt you real quick. The average price I remember, at least, freaking in my day, for a brand new console was between $300 and $500, roughly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so both of the top line models are $500 for both of them. And then the PS5 digital is $400. The Series S is $300.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
So the Xbox's version of the digital is $200 cheaper than its predecessor.
And I wonder if PS5 would even come out with the digital version if Microsoft wasn't doing a cheaper version. But
no, I bet you they would, because I bet you long term wise, which I know that's totally a word, the gaming industry wants people to buy digital. Yeah, exactly.
Because for reasons we talked about in the physical media episode.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Callback. I bet you that this is the last generation of consoles that have disk drives.
Mm-hmm.
Calling it right now.
Yeah, it's possible, especially if less people buy them.
Mm-hmm. Well, when's the last time we had a new console?
2012.
Yeah, fucking almost 10 fucking years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and go out on a little bit of a limb here and say this is the last of the physical media consoles.
Yeah, it's possible. So the thing about the Xbox and the PlayStation is they have some commonalities too in the middle of the Venn diagram. So they're both doing UHD Blu-ray, Ultra HD, 4K Blu-ray.
Right.
They're doing 4K and some 8K, HDMI 2.1. The kind of the biggest thing about these consoles that separates them from the previous generation is something called an SSD. So an SSD is a solid state drive.
Yes.
Instead of a hard drive, which is a spinning mechanical.
Right. A bunch of discs, gold discs spinning around.
Right. It's a solid state. It has no moving parts. And it's much faster. Okay. It's a little bit more expensive currently, but of course there's a whole economy of scale thing. But the thing about the SSD is it's built in to the consoles. The developers know that it's there. Since the SSD can run a heck of a lot faster, they can do a lot of crazy things with video games now that they couldn't do with a hard drive because the hard drive is just too slow.
Right.
What happens when you're in a loading screen is data is moving from the disk or the hard drive.
Right. The spinny gold disk.
To the RAM.
Right. Exactly.
Which is the fast memory that communicates directly to the processor.
That's like the active memory.
Right.
Yes.
This is way oversimplifying it, but just having like a giant ass pool of RAM, basically, instead of having a hard drive. So you don't have to do that moving of data from one thing to another.
You just have
the SSD is so fast, it can keep up with both of them. There's no bottleneck, as it were.
See. Okay.
In that, again, I'm oversimplifying.
Yeah, and I get it. Yeah.
The way that they design games can completely change. The things that they can do now is going to be pretty crazy.
But I held back by all these previous limitations from the previous consoles.
Yeah. You might have heard of an SSD. They're not new. Some people might be like poo-pooing SSDs because if they put it in their PC or in their PlayStation, they're like, oh, well, the games don't really run any better. I mean, like I got like 2 seconds less of a load time or whatever. But that's because the developers haven't been able to code just for the SSD,
right?
Knowing that it's there. They have to cater to the HDD and design their games around it. They can't build it
around this new functionality of making it faster and everything. They have to use they have to play in the certain arena.
Right.
Yeah, that it limitates them or whatever.
Because they have to make sure everybody can play their game. Exactly, that's what they want. Right. So PlayStation's strategy is their I/O speed, which without getting too technical is just basically how fast the data moves in and out of the system.
Okay. I/O is Internet Operator Speed, I guess?
It's in out between like the processor and the graphics and the RAM. Okay.
Nerd.
So another part of their strategy is they've been working on some 3D audio stuff, which sounds really promising. It's not the kind of stuff that you can demonstrate with like a video. You know, obviously it's something you have to experience.
Word.
They've got a new controller design that they're
I have seen that. Yeah. It looks pretty.
They've also got VR, which would be, continuing their big push.
Is Microsoft not dipping their toes into that?
Microsoft is not getting into VR as far as the console space goes.
That's surprising to me. Okay.
Yeah. They have yet to unveil their new VR, but they've said that the current version is going to be forward compatible with the PS5. And they've been making a decent amount of money, and they've got studios working on VR stuff, so I can't imagine they're not going to come out with a new one.
Mm-hmm.
And they've also got a thing called PlayStation Now, which is a cloud streaming service. So instead of installing the games on your console and updating them or whatever, or buying the disc and putting it in, you just stream it.
You can access, basically.
Right. And on that note, so Sony signed on with Microsoft Azure, which is their cloud network.
Sony signed up with Microsoft?
Yes. You're getting a very confused look right now.
Yeah, what?
Okay, so in the
internet were mortal enemies.
And a little bit of a context here. In the internet space, there's a few big players as far as cloud storage goes.
Right.
There's Amazon.
Netflix? Oh, okay.
No. Amazon, which owns has 40-something% of the market share. They're just dominating the fuck out of it.
Right.
Microsoft is second, and there is called Azure. And both of those companies have been investing in it for a long time. There's also Google and Oracle.
Okay.
And there's some other ones, but the really big one is Amazon, and then Microsoft's second.
Okay.
So Sony signed on with Microsoft just for their data infrastructure for their server ability.
Jesus.
Their cloud.
Okay.
Microsoft's Azure system is going to power not only PlayStation Now, presumably,
but their Xbox
but the PlayStation Network itself.
Yes, and everything. Totally. So Microsoft is going to have both pieces of the pie, basically?
Sort of. But the thing is, that sounds kind of weird.
Right.
But the further you dig into stuff and the more you know about this stuff, people are using each other's stuff all the time. Like, for example, Blu-ray. That's owned by Sony. Sony was one of the partners that created Blu-ray, and Blu-ray is in the Xbox One, and it's going to be in the new Xbox.
Yeah, of course.
Things like that. And, they're using each other's patents and licensing, whatnot all the time.
The lines of company individualism is kind of being blurred.
Exactly. Especially in this new licensing era where nobody's really owning anything anymore.
Right. They just license it.
Right. And Microsoft is becoming less of a software selling company and everything, and it's more of just like a platform.
That they're monitoring and
right. They don't sell Word anymore. They sell Office 365.
Word.
They don't sell Windows anymore. Really, Windows 10 is free.
Right.
That they're just changing their whole thing. So it's kind of like that, which kind of leads me into the elephant of the room: cloud gaming. This kind of goes into the digital thing we're talking about, the end of discs and things like that.
Mm-hmm. End of physical media.
So.
What do you mean when you say cloud gaming? Does that mean you're affecting the effectiveness of the cloud for other companies or something?
No. It's just the games are stored in the cloud and you're playing them off the cloud instead of playing them off your console.
Oh, literal cloud gaming.
Yeah.
Sorry, like online gaming. Like I thought you meant how things can be gamed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I thought you meant cloud gaming.
No.
Yeah, sorry, idiot.
Just changing the weather. A little bit of a history here, backing up. So in 2003, there was this company called OnLive. That was where a lot of people first heard the concept of cloud gaming. They're like, oh man, you're not going to have to buy a console anymore. You just have this controller just hooks up to this little box and it's just streaming things.
Totally.
And you don't have to pay for like a new computer every couple years or whatever.
Right. You just access the site.
Yeah. In 2015, they sold their patents to Sony, which is the parent company PlayStation. In 2008, their competitor Gaikai was formed, and in 2012, that was acquired by Sony.
Okay.
So now we have PlayStation Now, which I mentioned, and then Microsoft has their own thing called xCloud.
Right.
So there's PlayStation Now, which is what's PlayStation thing. There's
Xbox
also
Cloud.
xCloud.
Or xCloud, rather.
Yeah. And xCloud's big thing is it's available on Android. But even those are not the only two cloud gaming players. So some people think that gaming is going to go towards like VR, and then some people think it's going to go towards streaming eventually. And we're not going to even have consoles anymore.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, PlayStation and Xbox are not the only two in cloud gaming. There's also a thing called Google Stadia. Have you heard about Stadia?
No.
Yeah, Stadia is another streaming service from Google. It's based on a perma-buy system. So like you buy the service, like it's like a subscription, and then you permanently buy those titles that you can play and stream whenever you want.
So it's like just having a digital library of like movies or whatever, right? And you buy them and now you have them forever.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
as long as you pay for the service.
And as long as the company is still operating.
Yeah, but it is Google. And of course, their advantage is they have, YouTube, and they can integrate with that.
All that.
It hasn't been super successful yet. And then just this week, Amazon is getting into the game with their system called Luna. And of course, Amazon also... Of course, Amazon bought Twitch, which is the game streaming service.
Yep, totally.
So they can integrate with that. And they're working on a subscription model, purely subscription model like Netflix. Pay one subscription, access all these freaking games.
Right.
And their big thing is they're on iOS, which Stadia is not, and xCloud is not. There's even a thing called GeForce Now, an NVIDIA thing. NVIDIA is a company that makes graphics cards for PC and sometimes things for consoles. They made the hardware that's in the Nintendo Switch, for example.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And they made the Xbox One, the PS3. They're a chip maker. So yeah, that's going to be pretty interesting to watch, the battle of the cloud giants.
Yeah, right.
So on the PC space, let's cover that real quick. Speaking of NVIDIA, they're coming out with a new series of graphics cards, and also AMD, which is the company that supplies the hardware for the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S. They're coming out with new graphics cards, and their whole new thing is you might have heard of these buzzwords like ray tracing. Ray tracing is a new big thing. Even the two consoles can do it, but of course PC will be able to do it better because they have more expensive parts and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And there's technical names and like brand names for it, but AI upresing, where it's like you render it at a low resolution, but AI can scale it. So you're using less processing power to make a higher resolution image.
Doesn't the AI take like processing power?
Yeah, but not as much as rendering it at a higher resolution.
Cool.
It's crazy. Not even a perceptible difference, basically. It's so good at doing it.
Damn.
Yeah. And of course, VR, we talked about this before. The Valve Index just came out, the one that I mentioned in the last VR episode. And then Oculus just announced their new Quest 2. There's an HP headset coming out. VR's not going away. Hand tracking and wireless are already here. And there's lots of companies still working on that front.
I'm excited on that.
Yeah. And so we can't forget about Nintendo, but there's no...
Oh, yeah, Nintendo.
Right. They're making money hand over fist right now.
Are they?
And, oh, yeah.
Good.
Over the quarantine and everything.
Good. That makes me happy.
Yeah, they had a fitness game sold like hotcakes because, nobody's going to the gym or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But the thing about Nintendo is they're really good at keeping a tight ship. They don't have lots of leaks over there. Nintendo.
They remind me of one of those type of companies that have like Southwest Airlines. They have one plane, which means they have one hangar, they have one mechanic, they have one set of spare parts. You know what I mean? Like,
and a very loyal fan base.
But yeah, exactly, right? And hilarious flight attendants that tell just the funniest jokes. Not really. I feel like Nintendo's like that. We're like, we do one thing here, but we do it damn well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah. There's no hard evidence at this point, but...
Hard evidence.
You could surmise from the things that NVIDIA is doing and everything like that there's going to be a new version of the Switch coming out, maybe in a couple years or so. So they don't let Microsoft and Sony run away with the...
Yeah, they're not trying to release like a new platform at the same time as Xbox. Or,
they're not going to play and they're not going to play the power game. They're not going to try to be like,
why would you? You're definitely
4K and everything.
It's a different like game kind of for them. You know what I mean? It's a different it's a different weight class. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So everybody's getting into the game here. Amazon, obviously Microsoft, even Apple are just buying studios left and right.
Jesus,
so
it's like a war.
Yeah. So get those indie games out there and go get y'all money.
Yeah, for real, right? This is like now is probably the best time for freaking indie developers to become recognized.
Yeah. So the future is looking bright. I'm pretty excited.
Totally.
Untitled